the lead up to the release of Resident Evil 6, Capcom's latest installments in their popular survival horror franchise, was met with concern. Many worrying the game was deviating too far from its roots in favor of action-oriented gameplay. The title is finally here, introducing new characters and game mechanics intertwined with elements signature to the series. But are these enough to win over worried fans, or like a zombie, is this game way past its prime?
Hey everybody, welcome to GamerNerdz. Let's get into a review of Resident Evil 6. The story revolves around a new virus called C-Virus. We're following three different characters for the beginning: Chris, Leon, and Jake. There's an extra one. I'm not going to spoil anything because Dinx here was going to kill me if I do. Resident Evil 6 has had many mixed reviews. If you watch reviews by other people, some people love it, some people hate it. So we're going to break it down into different segments. I'll start with the story. In my opinion, the driving force and the single best part about Resident Evil 6 is the story. The story starts off slow in each campaign. I started playing as Leon, and at the beginning I had issues with it. You can ask Manny here. He saw me cursing and saying, "What is this?" The demo didn't really do much to reinforce my love for this, but then I started playing the main game and getting deeper into the story, and before you know it, I couldn't put it down. I had to find out what's gonna happen.
No, I think it's the single worst part of the game because it does no setup. Leon at the feet of the dead president, which he just shot, must have been a Republican. Then you're introduced into Jake's campaign. You barely learn that he's the son of the major villain of the previous titles. There's no build up or anything. His interaction with Sherry, pretty awful. Chris's campaign, I didn't even bother. The worst part of the game definitely is the story. There's no character build up. All these intertwining campaigns, and there's just no real resolution. I don't really feel for any of these characters. They're all paper cutouts.
I would disagree. I would disagree really. People that are playing Resident Evil 6 know the background of the Resident Evil history. It is true though that there is no lead up to what's going down right now. Still a good story either way. Everything's entwined perfectly together. The suspense is there. It's one of the best aspects of the game.
The way they interact, I'm not gonna say it's as interactive as what we saw in Uncharted, but I do appreciate the way the characters talk to each other. This is the first Resident Evil game where the characters, you actually learn about them. It's not just about this virus that's happening. We learn about the characters. You actually
really? Tell me about Piers. Tell me about Chris.
Listen,
tell me why all of a sudden we are thrown into Europe with Jake, who's running from a very annoying supervillain, and he's automatically part of Resident Evil 6.
You know what? We do know why he's there. He's a mercenary. He takes the virus, and it doesn't take because he's Wesker's son. He has his immunity, and that's how the story starts. There is a build-up, and as the game progresses, you care about the characters. You don't want anything to happen to them.
Okay, their voice.
It's true, he was thrown in there too quickly.
I'm gonna disagree with you guys. The story is the best part, and I do like the way the story is intertwined. There's three different campaigns. You're learning different sides of the story. You eventually cross different characters, and you kind of see what they're doing for the most part, and then they go away. It leaves you wondering, okay, what are they doing? And it makes you want to play.
I think the one scene that just ruins the whole thing is you see Chris as a drunk trying to recover from the massacre of his squad. He's pathetic. You learn that Piers is trying to bring him back. Chris was a boulder punching monster in Resident Evil 5. He's been brought down to nothing. He could have stayed in that European bar drinking his life away. I had no interest in the story. Worst part of the game.
That's the thing. He's in the bar, he's drinking. We're so used to seeing these characters as just these faces that go face adversity, and there's nothing about them per se that really attracts you to them. And then in Resident Evil 6, they build some sort of backstory. The characters have flaws. I'm not saying this is the best story that ever was written. All I'm saying is that the story is, in my opinion, the single best part of the game, and I appreciated it.
The story would be the only part that's worth it. The stories are going to intertwine, but you're going to see those cutscenes multiple times. You might as well just skip through them.
Thank you, Manny. Thank you for pointing my point out.
Disagreed. I like the story. It kept me going. Now, let's get into the gameplay. I have mixed views on it. You know, at the beginning, I started playing the game. I started playing as Leon. It started just really blah. Almost like it was trying to reintroduce you into the gameplay that we've been playing for so long. It had a long build up, but once it finally starts, here's the thing about the gameplay in Resident Evil 6 as a whole. It tries to do everything. The different campaigns all play slightly differently. Leon's campaign is more reminiscent of the traditional Resident Evil games. Jake's campaign is kind of a jack of all trades. And then you have Chris's that is this really generic third-person
Gears of War wannabe.
Everything that you could possibly not want in a Resident Evil game.
I commend them for doing what they did. I had fun playing it. Leon's campaign, in my opinion, is the best one. Chris's was so mundane. It is fun. There's nothing intrinsically wrong about it. Where I saw the most issues, funny enough, even though it was my favorite campaign, was Leon. They introduced all these new things. They're trying to make it more Western, and you're doing these old school things like looking for keys, open gates that are yay high, and you're just wondering, why did you just jump over the damn thing?
My main problem with Resident Evil 6 are quick time events. Some of you guys love them. I hate them. I hate quick time events. I have to change my remote now because there are so many. Turning joysticks, smashing A, mashing X, not my forte.
When I played the demo, I kind of thought there was too many QuickTime events, but actually as playing through all 3 campaigns, it's not that bad. Kind of enjoyed it. You can actually mash both thumbsticks to speed up some of the events. In some contexts, you're trying to like rev a motorboat where you have like some crazy VOW chasing you, so there's some sort of intensity. People were saying that it's almost everywhere, and actually it's not.
It is everywhere. Every time you get knocked down.
When you get knocked down, but you can actually counter stuff. The worst part about the gameplay is that Capcom just did a really bad job of actually explaining, context-sensitive actions you can do. I played through one whole campaign and I didn't know you could do a quick combination of your green herbs. I didn't know you could do counterattacks. I didn't know you could even charge at someone and knock them with your shoulder. I learned this through some PDF that some guy created on the internet. I originally was playing the game the wrong way, but now I found out you can do all these counter moves, you can jump on your butt and then roll around. When the gameplay starts getting going and you actually know how to play it, it was my favorite part of the actual Resident Evil experience.
I'll agree with you that some of the gameplay mechanics are not really explained, but come on, you're a game vet, you should have figured it out.
Really?
But the quick time events,
I should have figured it out.
You should have. The quick time events, a lot of them, in my opinion, kind of cheapen the game experience. One of the first ones that you play is in the intro of the game, where you're in a helicopter, just kind of twirling your wrist around and pressing A, and you're just like, that's it.
I was gonna pilot the helicopter, I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
The thing is that the game has a lot of vehicle segments, so it's not like they weren't there and you couldn't actually play. They just decided to cheapen the experience by including these quick time events. With that being said, there are a lot of vehicle sections in the game, and I thought I would hate them, but I kind of liked them.
No, they were, oh my god.
The aiming was so bad.
The motorcycle segment, the segment where you're on like helicopter, where you're trying to pull out your vehicle out of a parking lot full of zombies. It was mundane, it was stupid. They could have done something more intuitive with it. What really bothered me was the boss fights.
You stretched them out.
I think they're time-based. There's not actual health. There's some bosses where you're just repeating literally the same thing. There's one segment where you're on a helicopter, cargo ship, and there's an enemy who's trying to take you down. You're literally running back and forth through this cargo ship for 10 minutes. I don't know if there's actual physical values attributed to these boss characters, or it's just you reach a certain value, then a cutscene hits.
Alive,
you know, like, I didn't like that at all. I really hated that.
Here is the problem. You were playing as Sherry in Jake's campaign, so you're playing a secondary character. Most of the meat of the gameplay takes place with the main person.
No, not at all.
Leon's final boss, oh my god.
The longest, most stretched out boss fight ever.
They artificially extended the campaign. Each campaign mission will take you between an hour and a half, which is fine, but in most cases, it just breaks down to you go into a room, you clear out the enemies, or you pull a lever, because in the year we have clear phones, high-tech companies releasing BOWs on the public, but we need levers. Pull at the same time to open some door and stuff. Really old school mechanics that don't mix well with the gameplay.
One of the cool things that I did like, campaigns do intertwine. If someone's playing at that point, the game will actually search for people playing.
For Jake's campaign, where you do intertwine with Leon and Helena, it's a 4-player boss battle, but then it's just like, okay, let's count the clock down before the next cutscene, and I really hated that. I actually like Capcom, introducing some cool mechanics. There's this new thing with skill points, which kind of seem, irrelevant at the beginning, but you can actually equip new skills. You can equip them live during the game and switch up, multiple configurations.
You can equip them.
You can switch them up during the game.
Yes, you can. See, you guys didn't know. You have multiplayer mercenaries mode. We're taking over from Resident Evil 4 and 5, which is always fun. When you actually beat these 3 campaigns, there is a secret 4th campaign that's unveiled, but just watch downtime because Voice spoiled it for you. The 4th campaign is actually very cool.
Ada Wong's campaign. At the beginning, I was really turned off by it because it felt like Metal Gear. I keep playing it's actually good. There are actually a lot more puzzles in this campaign, and they're not explained like in Leon's campaign, so it's more for the hardcore Resident Evil fan. Her campaign reveals and kind of puts the holes in the storyline that were introduced in the other ones.
This big.
There are a lot of holes, she fills them up. That sounds weird. The gameplay had the most issues. It's generic as a whole. The puzzles were really generic. Even the ones in Leon's campaign, even though it's supposed to be reminiscent of the old stuff, for the most part, even solved it for you. They literally just told you what you have to do. Pull that lever.
That's all you gotta do.
The story for me was the driving factor.
No. If you actually learn how to play Resident Evil 6 with all these really cool context-sensitive events, like for example, you can run, slide, drop a remote bomb, blow it up behind you with all these zombies, turn around, do all this cool stuff. The game just does a really bad job explaining it to you.
Camera was the single biggest enemy in this game. Gameplay is still fun.
It's okay.
Gameplay to me really is not the best at all. It was not good. None of the experience was good. Cover system wasn't good. I had to put my sensitivity on the max, and even then that wasn't enough. Turning around back and forth.
You can actually do a quick turn, but the game doesn't tell you to do that.
I didn't even know that. I just learned something. No explanations whatsoever.
One thing that Capcom really did well with Resident Evil 6 are the visuals. For the most part, I was actually very impressed by the cutscenes. The audio, now it is a Resident Evil game. You're looking for cheesy one-liners. The voice delivery is actually very well done.
Yeah, I'll agree.
But the one-liners, especially by Jake, it just ruins the experience. He's cheesy, he's supposed to be Wesker's son, this is the son of a supervillain, drops some cool lines, instead he's just dropping cheesy one-liners a la Dead Space 3. Capcom did a really good job with the visuals. You have to raise the brightness to at least 20, otherwise you can't see crap because the game is just dark, but it's actually very pretty to look at.
I didn't quite get that, the brightness too. In the beginning of the game, they say lower your brightness until you don't see the 6.
No, that's a joke. It's a joke. They just want to see if you're gullible, because I played the demo with that 6 barely visible. You can't see anything.
The score as well had its good moments. During some cutscenes, it was a bit cheesy. Some of it was way too patriotic for like a dark game. Overall, graphically, it is a beautiful game.
All in all, Resident Evil 6, in my opinion, story was amazing. I love the story. A little cheesy, a little convoluted, but I still had fun playing it. The AV was secondary for me, and then the gameplay was kind of meh. If you're looking for a scary game, this is definitely not the game for you. It's survival horror only because there are zombies in it.
No. Resident Evil 6 is no longer a survival horror game. If you want a real Resident Evil experience, go back to 4, go back to 3, or 2, even 1. It's a shadow of its former self. You want to play a survival horror game, maybe Dead Space. Resident Evil 6, survival horror, it's not. Action-oriented, it definitely is.
To me, the only horror for this game was actually playing it. It was not the best experience. Luckily, it does have kind of a story to save it, and awesome graphics. Very unique bosses and enemies, which are pretty cool, and some of them really tough. Gameplay really lost it for me. If you want to play a real survival horror, Resident Evil 1, 2, 3 for me were the tops.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed the show.
Don't forget to leave your comments in the section below of what you thought of Resident Evil 6.
Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. See you next time on The GamerNerdz.
Start looking at the old school gameplay mechanics in lieu of the new stuff.
My main problem with Resident Evil 6.
You don't like the word lieu?
Say it again, Steve.
In lieu. Okay. As I was saying it. In lieu.
Fill her up.
You've had enough.
Listen, sweetheart. You're here to pour drinks and look pretty.